In the advertisement, in one of the scenes, you can see a picture with the 3 characters we already know. For those who don't know which children are being referred to, you can check out our previous videos with theories. I paid more attention to this, and you might have noticed that on Doughy, or doughy body, there are 3 hands of different colors, which suggests that Doughy is made up of more than one child. Did you know that, in fact, we could have guessed about the characters of the 4th chapter long before its release? And what do we have here? Well, the developers gave us some subtle hints, even if not very obvious. So if you're curious, you can check out the new art from Mob Entertainment. It's very possible that the developers left clues for the 5th chapter as well. If you find anything, share it in the comments. I'm curious too. By the way, do you remember those annoying Huggy Wuggy toys from the very beginning of the game? Well, in Dr. Sawyer's laboratory, or just the doctor, there's the original experiment sample numbered 1391, and most likely it was the doctor who created the mini Huggy Wuggy for Mommy Longlegs. Referring back to the earlier chapters, it's important to note that the Red Hand, with full access to the factory, first appeared in Chapter 1, but at the beginning of Chapter 2, Mommy Longlegs takes it for herself. According to some reports, our bright hero was created from an orphan who really loved tearing the heads off his toys, probably in order to get 2 toys. Oh, what a smart boy. This child immediately caught the attention of Harley Sawyer, who was looking for a candidate for experiment 1166, Yarnabe. If you take a closer look at this monster, you can see scars and injuries that were apparently inflicted by other larger toys. As we know, Yarnabe is like a guard dog for Dr. Sawyer, which is why it got these injuries protecting its owner. Also, I think you noticed that when you get closer to it, you can hear distorted radio signals or electrical interference. Now it makes sense why Yarnabe caught fire for no apparent reason. Apparently, being in the hot atmosphere, a short circuit happened in the player inside Yarnabe, and that's how he caught fire. By the way, do you still remember Pianosaurus? If you remembered him, my respect. You have an excellent memory. He was only in the game for about 10 seconds, but that's beside the point. Anyway, he also had his own advertisement and even a melody that Pianosaurus played himself on the piano. So, it seems that one YouTuber had nothing better to do and he played the exact same piano keys that Pianosaurus played, which confirms the theory that Pianosaurus has no musical ear. Now let's take a look at the decorated wall in the toy shelter, and the first thing that stands out is the reference to Lehman, about which I made a whole short. I also noticed that the toys really miss junk food because above the chicken drumstick it says "I love chicken." And below the chicken, it says that it's actually not chicken, which suggests that the creatures may eat either employees or other creatures like themselves. And on this drawing, it's easy to guess that the prototype tried to feed them a live human body so they could satisfy their hunger. However, the toys refuse this offer, perhaps disgusted by it. Next, we have a drawing with Poppy and the caption, "She abandoned us," which suggests that the toys don't really like Poppy. And finally, let's talk about our favorite Huggy Wuggy. In the first part, he falls into a deep chasm with pipes. Personally, I thought Huggy was already dead, but as you can see, the 4th chapter changes everything. Moreover, if you look closely, you can see bandages and wraps, which most likely means Dr. Sawyer managed to patch him up and bring him back to life. But could we have predicted that Huggy Wuggy was alive from the very beginning? It turns out, yes. In the 2nd chapter, you could see blue tufts of fur with blood just like Huggy Wuggy's. So it turns out that most of the events in the 4th chapter were predicted in previous parts, and it's highly likely that the 4th chapter also left many clues for the story's development. Time will tell. Write down what you think about it, but we think we will go further and look at new theories that you will be very interesting. Hey there, my friend. In this video, we're going to dive deep into the mysteries and hidden details of Chapter 4 of Poppy Playtime. We'll be talking about Consider Yourself Warned. This chapter has so many hidden secrets and subtle clues that are easy to miss. If you've got any theories or observations about the game, please drop them in the comments below. Alright, no more waiting. Let's get started with today's video. I want to talk about Riley. So, if anyone didn't understand, Riley was just an ordinary orphan who was taken from the orphanage to the very laboratory where experiments were being conducted on children. They performed a surgery on her, and as a result, Riley woke up in the body of a toy. Then we find other parts of her diary where, apparently, the hour of joy began. She decided to lock herself in her cell, and when everything quieted down, she discovered a pile of corpses. In her last note, she confirms that food is running out, but she refuses to eat. She mentions that everyone arrives at this place by train, and since the conductor was already dead, she took the keys to the train so that something like this wouldn't happen to the other children. What happened to her afterward? Then the player finds Riley herself, and you can see what happened with her. Next in line is the Doctor, an unexpected character. If you go through enough tapes, you can start to understand the Doctor's behavior before he was transferred from his body into the television. The previous Doctor, Sawyer, seemed to prefer doing things his own way. He didn't care much about schedules and wasn't afraid to make mistakes. He was always a troublesome presence in the system. Some of the other Doctors even considered getting rid of him, thinking about feeding him to Boxy Boo. However, the Doctor's intelligence and abilities were far superior to the other scientists. That's why the decision was made to separate Dr. Sawyer from his body but keep his mind intact, allowing him to continue fulfilling his role. He was so crucial that even the prototype chose to cooperate with him instead of destroying him. I suggest we listen to this recording of the conversation between Prototype and Sawyer, in which Prototype makes it clear that Doctor will still play a key role in uncovering his secret.
You know I'm still your best shot at cracking that secret. If I weren't, you would have already killed me. A sound observation. Yes, you have made yourself useful.
So, since we've already talked about Sawyer, let's move on to the next character. Now, let's talk about a character like Ollie. This character first appeared in Chapter 3, for those who remember. Ollie was something like a guide. Ollie would point out which doors to open, where to go, what to do. In Chapter 3, everything was clear. Ollie was our friend. But Chapter 4 turned everything upside down. It turned out that Ollie had been in contact with Poppy at one point, but after that, the connection with Poppy was intercepted by Prototype. Prototype also realized that Poppy fully trusted Ollie, and that meant Prototype just needed to catch Ollie and copy his voice.
What did you do with Ollie?
I'm right here, Poppy. For you. I'll always be here.
It was no problem for Prototype to do so, since no one knew. As a result, it wasn't Ollie, but Prototype who had been giving us orders all this time. That's how it was. And now, the most interesting part. In this tape, Poppy talks about how she really wanted to leave the factory right after the hour of joy, but Prototype deceived her and wouldn't let her leave. Because of this, Poppy hated Prototype, but at the same time, she understands that he was right. They can't leave because that would mean completely freeing the entire factory. She knows that the same workers will return and continue their experiments on the children. She also mentions that Prototype suggested they eat all the human bodies so that the toys wouldn't starve. This explains why we haven't seen any corpses in the previous chapters. Then Poppy says that she misses her father, when he was still running the company. Poppy was the daughter of the head of the company, Playtime. This information completely turns the entire plot upside down. She was the daughter of Elliot Ludwig this whole time. That's all for today. Write down what you think and share your ideas so we can reflect on these theories together.